Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to this week's edition of the Thursday Talk webinars on DME for Peace. My name is Jack Farrell. I am the DME for Peace project manager at Search for Common Ground, and I'm going to be your host today. This is the fourth webinar in our series on digital adaptation and technological innovation in the peacebuilding field, and we're doing this in partnership with BuildUp. In light of COVID-19, there's a need for practitioners across the peacebuilding, development, and humanitarian nexus to embrace technology as a means to build peace and create enduring change. As many of us are trying to adapt to the new world, for many organizations, the pandemic has sparked the need for a digital peacebuilding strategy and has shown how slow the peacebuilding field has been to adopt new technology. To help us understand this a bit more, I'm delighted to welcome Professor Fredrick Ogenga, Director of the Center for Media Democracy, Peace and Security in Kenya, who is going to lead a discussion on understanding online polarization in Kenya, a digital peacebuilding perspective. Just a note, if you have a question during Fredrick's presentation, you can write it in the question function on your GoToWebinar dashboard, and we will address it during the discussion. And one further note, Fredrick is having some technological challenges today, so we don't have slides, and there may be some delays in the sort of connection between questions and answers. So I appreciate your patience. The Thursday Talks are a platform for everybody in the peacebuilding field, especially those who have limited access to the internet. So we try to do this in as low bandwidth way as possible. But I'm really excited for today's discussion. So I'm now going to hand over to today's guest, Fredrick. You're very welcome to the Thursday Talks, and please feel free to take it away when you're ready.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity to attend this website this Thursday on understanding online polarization in Kenya, a digital peace building perspective. I would want to state that really to open it up with some few questions about technology, because the world is moving to a direction where we are seeing human beings driven by technological use. So I will take it from the theoretical aspect approach first and try and compare theories of technology, technological determinism for that matter by Marsha McLuhan, and current theories called new theories of technology that really talks about the idea of not celebrating the positive aspects of technology, that technology will necessarily lead to positive progress. We want to look at technology critically by understanding that technology can play a double-edged sword, both as a positive and a negative thing. So we want to debunk the notion that technology often leads to conflict, because the scholarly debate has really focused and emphasized on the negative roles that technology plays. And we want to appraise the positive roles that technology can play. But we want to do this in the context of liberating African epistemology. By liberating African epistemology, I mean that we want to look at how we want to think about technology as Africans. And that's why we bring about the issue of the ecology of technology, the ecological factors that are driving technological innovations in different geographical local spaces in Kenya. And when we do that, we want to awaken the ontological reality as knowledge, as opposed to knowledge that is taken from the West to the global South. So if you look at Kenya, for example, and this explains our project, why we wanted to look at this project from an exploratory approach, rather than prescriptive approach, where we want to come and say, this is what we think about technology, and this is how we think technology can help. We want to dive into the context of the problem and use the local resources, including people that are there, so that they can help us think about technology in a way that can be understood and in a way that can be mutually benefiting for local subjects. So if you look at Kenya, we have two things that we've at least identified as far as our digital peace building project is concerned. We've identified politics as a very crucial thing, and this politics is ethnic politics. It has been ethnic ever since, and it has defined the modus operandi of political players and political actors. So in Kenya, we know that we are moving towards 2022 elections, which is a watershed, in fact. This election will determine the future of Kenya in terms of transitional politics, because the current president, Uhuru Kenyatta, is serving his last term in office, constitutional term, and it means, therefore, politics is hot on who ought to inherit those shoes and go to State House. So we are seeing a lot of polarization around political issues, but the elephant in the room there is that this polarization is anchored on ethnicity. But we are also seeing something else that we know that has affected the whole world, which is COVID-19. So in our digital peace building approach, we are taking politics and COVID-19 as very important ecological factors that are going to determine how we want to engage using social media as an approach. And so what we have done is that we have gathered together a number of students from different universities, public universities in Kenya. These are 6 universities to be precise. And we have each of those universities have got 10 students. And these 10 students are really guided by at least 2 faculty members. So in total, we have a number of students, like up to 60 students and up to 12 faculty members in a project that is locally referred to as Maskani. Maskani in English means home. And this home is nothing but a digital home. It's a digital peace building home that is actually that actually consists of 2 levels of technological innovations. At one level, we are using WhatsApp. So we have a WhatsApp group in each university that is composed of these 10 students and 12 faculty members. And then we have also a WhatsApp Maskani faculty group, where we normally meet and share ideas as faculty members. And so that is the microcosm level of the intervention. At the macro level, we now have a Facebook page, which is our grand Maskani home, whereby all these students are now really engaging together. They are part and parcel of that Facebook group, and it's currently the phase where we are. And we are thinking that in this phase, students will be really using it as a platform of sharing ideas, but also as a space where they come back after engaging in real time in other online spaces that they belong about some of these peace building digital initiatives that we've given them over a learning period of 1 month. We actually trained them for 1 month, and we graduated them with a certificate in digital peace building. So if we think about digital peace building and local perspectives, then we are talking about a few things, which I will summarize below. One of those things is that these digital peace builders, first and foremost, are young people. And we chose them because we knew and we assumed that young people engage on social media. They have social media accounts, they use Facebook quite often, and WhatsApp. And indeed, we established that they actually do that. So one of the criteria for qualifying these participants, digital peace builders, was that they have some level of online presence, and that they always find themselves in online spaces, and they quite more often than not meet challenging, polarizing discourses flying in these online spaces. So youthful factor became a very important factor in deciding on how we want to approach digital peace building. The other thing was that we chose them also based on ethnic and geographical diversity. So you find that these participants across the board, people who emerge from different ethnicities in Kenya, and these are people coming from varied and different geographical spaces. Virtually, more or less all the regions represented in Kenya. And we are assuming that from those regions that they emerge from, there are political challenges that are bent towards ethnicity that they come with. So they come with local experiences, local lenses, and they are able to juxtapose this with the technological capacities and possibilities that social media provide, so that we can have some rich kind of discourses going around when you want to engage other Kenyans, other unsuspecting Kenyans online in digital peace building to reduce polarization going forward as far as politics is concerned and as far as COVID-19 is concerned. And I want to mention that as an ecological factor, COVID-19, most of the time we have seen that discourses arising out of COVID-19 have been bordering on misinformation and disinformation. So quite often, misinformation and disinformation is really playing negatively as far as the Ministry of Health is concerned, in terms of how the government want to address COVID-19 going forward. So we find it bringing challenges in terms of mass testing, also in terms of mask wearing, and also testing. Really, people are finding it really difficult to go and volunteer to be tested. So it's a setback in the approaches that are being implemented by the Ministry of Health to contain the virus and really flatten the curve. So online spaces are these spaces that these things are playing around, playing themselves around, and people are polarized around issues of COVID-19. So it's really an important ecological factor aside from politics. The other thing we chose also was, as we moved forward in digital peace building, we really thought individual capacities in terms of strengths and weaknesses. These are really determining roles in what because a peace builder is an individual online who has a keyboard, and who, in other words, technologically, we call him a user. And this user will generate content. And this content might either be negative or positive content that is going to bring about polarization or de-escalate polarization. So the peace builders that we have in this Masani project are young people, like I said, from different ethnic backgrounds, but also with different potentials in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. And we have seen that from the training that these individuals are happy, are comfortable with some particular roles that digital peace building, particular roles that are key in digital peace building. And some of those roles that they mentioned are things like some students who are happy with facilitating the polarizing dialogue. Some of them are just happy with humanizing peace, giving peace a human perspective online, digitally. And some of them are happy with listening and de-escalating, polarizing conversations on two of those things that I've mentioned, COVID-19 and politics. Some of them are happy with promoting positive messaging, you know, where you're just an ambassador of positive messages online. Some of them are happy with creating change from within because individually they see themselves as change makers. In other words, inner peace begins with them, and they project this outside using technology for others, and they were happy with playing that role. So if you combine individual strengths, because they vary, and you combine this with group strengths, you know, like collective strengths, then you can come up with a very customized, I can call it customized software that you can begin navigating the online space with as you offload the peace building skills, and then you come back home later in the evening in the Maskani Facebook page to share your experiences online. Some of this sharing might demand that you post some of those experiences using screenshots and hashtags, and the responses to those hashtags, the likes and shares and what have you, and the kind and nature and scope of conversation that you had when you were outside, when you went outside from, when you woke up and went outside from the Maskani house, the home, and you had some experiences out there with unsuspecting online users about politics and COVID-19, and now you came back home in the evening and you want to share these experiences with other peace builders from other universities in the region. And this, therefore, what it does, it sharpens the skills for peace building skills and gives you another opportunity and knowledge to go outside again and do the same thing. So we chose WhatsApp and Facebook for nothing but their popularity with the youth. So these youths, the ones we are using as peace builders, are on those platforms, and they also agree with us that others out there are on similar platforms. So we meet them out there based on the popularity of those platforms that they find themselves in. But again, I have to emphasize that we saw the need of also brainstorming amongst ourselves about the need to come up with a strategy on how we want to approach others in digital peace building, and that compelled us to come up with a code of conduct. A code of conduct simply became a document that captures the spirit of Maskani peace builders in terms of both individual characters and collective characters, and how we want to project peace building intervention going forward. And some of these individual characters and collective characters are things like truthfulness, creativity, being honest, accountability, having respect for one another, being open-minded, being flexible about issues, and above all, doing no harm to other people, so that we can treat each other with some level of respect. So this code of conduct, together with individual and collective roles, and together with ecological factors, being, in this case, being politics and COVID-19, are summing up what we call a digital peace building intervention template that you want to use going forward. So this template that you want to employ, and we began employing it slowly, is something that is going to be monitored, is something that is going to be tested and monitored, and in something that we hopefully thinking that is going to support our digital peace building skills going forward. I would want to emphasize, therefore, that for digital peace building approaches to succeed, there has to be some level of support. And this kind of support both is in terms of individual peace builders and how they want to see themselves as in terms of developing a strong support mechanism, a chain of support amongst themselves, and also in terms of the level and nature of incentives that these young people who are digital savvy could be looking forward to and can be supported so that they can continue with the good work of digital peace building. So we are thinking about the incentivizing them through things such as digital badges, through competitions that you win, through recognition, and also through competitions and prizes where we can have some competition in a week about some digital peace building role. For example, maybe an example of humanizing peace, or maybe even promoting positive messaging. And when these digital peace builders go outside to online spaces to interact with unsuspecting other online users on political issues and COVID-19 issues, they come back home to our Facebook page and share those challenges, yeah? And we're going to identify either through voting or either through just looking at who stood out in terms of those peace building challenges as far as the competition is concerned. And we give them an award. The award can be actually even data bundles that can support them going forward on top of the bundles that we usually supply them with on a weekly basis in terms of the project. So those are some of the things we are thinking about, and also as support mechanisms. But I want to point out that also the best mechanisms will come, support mechanisms come from individual initiatives. The conviction that the individual has as an individual and also collectively that digital peace building is playing an important role to them as individuals and also as a team and the community as a whole. And this is both offline and online. So some of those things include things like being realistic about expected change online and offline, so that you don't become overambitious and you resign in the process. You give up because nothing is working offline for you and nothing is working online for you. So being realistic becomes one of those key support mechanisms. Another one is that code of conduct that I talked about. Code of conduct, if you are guided by a properly customized code of conduct that is owned, that has some level of ownership from digital, these youthful digital peace builders and their faculty support group, it means that it has more chances of surviving, because it means that these students are operating within conventional procedures that they all agree to, you know, so they don't get themselves, or they don't find themselves conflicting with what they need to do ethically. The other thing is also engaging in offline activities for re-energizing, rejuvenating themselves and re-energizing themselves, because online spaces can also be cumbersome and tiresome, and it's important to know and to note that there is no amount of virtual reality that can replace sensory reality. Sensory reality is the flesh and blood reality that you find offline. So offline activities can be used to support online engagements, so that the student can be, because the student is flesh and blood. And remember, when I started this conversation, I said that technological determinism theories should not be celebrated, because this means that human beings, technology is using human beings as sex organs at their own pleasure. technology should not be using humans at their own pleasure. Human beings should be using technology at their own pleasure. And in this case, if the pleasure is to bring positive peace, if the pleasure is to bring positive politics, if the pleasure is to reduce the level of stigma around COVID-19 and misinformation, then so be it. Human beings should be ahead of technology in most of these things. And therefore, offline activities will be very refreshing as far as digital peace building is concerned. The other thing is support network from peers and mentors. People should support each other. And this one reminds me of my explanations on the role of Facebook. Facebook page that we have, as far as is on another level in terms of a face in our peace building digital strategy, it's also acting as a support network from both the peers and the faculty, because all the faculty members, 12 of them and more than 60 students, at the end of the day converge in this platform, and they can support each other in terms of their experiences, what is possible, and challenges, and so on. And then, last but not least, when digital peace builders learn something, they should be able to sit down and reflect together. What if they encounter challenges in real time, offline and online? They should be able to share those challenges and reflect on them so that they can come up with better approaches of dealing with those challenges going forward. And lastly, in terms of support mechanisms, I think these peace builders must also be very open and free and friendly to each other, so that they create and maintain a friendly environment for conversations and for really support. And I want to say that we are yet to really, in conclusion, that we are yet to see whether it's going to be prudent to be able to allow digital peace builders, when they walk out of the home carrying their digital peace building backpack with digital peace building tools inside, that they want to launch in online spaces when they visit these other online spaces that they belong to. Then we want to think and brainstorm on whether or not it's going to be important to do what is called evangelism, digital evangelism, where you're going there hoping that you can come back with some disciples like Jesus Christ or Muhammad. You come back with some digital disciples, and whether it's going to be interesting to invite these disciples in this Facebook page, so that going forward, this Facebook page will expand beyond the 60 students that we currently have, to include other youthful men and women, young men and women across the board in Kenya, so that it can become a more powerful movement. This is something that I am here to share with faculty. We're having a Zoom meeting tomorrow as faculty members to brainstorm on whether or not this will compromise our customized digital peace building intervention that is already working very well for us, as we are as 60 students and 12 faculty members. I thank you. I will end there.
Perfect, Fredrick. Thank you so much for such a detailed presentation. And I think there's a number of things that you've said today that will stick with me, particularly your descriptions of technology as a sex organ, digital sort of evangelism. I think these are all sort of messages that will resonate with the audience and are quite unique. To our audience, thank you for your patience. To those of you who joined late, there are no slides today. We are experiencing some technical issues, and due to Wi-Fi concerns, there is sort of a slight delay on the feed, on the questions and answers between myself and Fredrick. So I appreciate your patience. This is now your time to shine. We're going to open up for some of your questions. A couple of notes about our format for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Thursday talks. You can You can submit a question in 2 ways. The first is through the question function on GoToWebinar, where you can type your question. The second is to click on the hand icon to raise your hand, which will allow you to unmute your microphone so you can ask your question live. When you do submit your question, we ask that you submit your name and affiliation. Just a note, these talks are recorded and posted on DME for Peace, so those who are not able to join us at this time can go back and listen to the presentation and the discussion. Now, Fredrick, I'm going to use my moderator's privilege here and ask a couple of early questions. The first is one of the challenges that sort of we have with doing online peace building or activism is that it can often be considered as lazy. So you've got your clicktivism, your slacktivism. So translating that online peace building to the real world is difficult. So I have a couple of questions around that. Is there any way that you can track users' experiences in the real world beyond their sharing on the Facebook group? And secondly, do you see significant drop-off in participation after a number of weeks?
Kindly repeat that question.
So the first question is, okay, so it's the idea of online activism and online peace building might be seen as lazy. So how are there ways to sort of measure people's engagement in person with peace building activities that they report on the Facebook group? Is there another way that you can track that? And then secondly, regarding the number of people participating, do they tend to stay participating for quite a while, or do they drop off after their early engagement?
Well, wonderful. That's a very wonderful question, and I think that question brings us to what is cracking our head right now, because I think the level at which you can comfortably say that you are not merely giving digital peace building lip service and you're actually doing something that is going to have some level of impact is a very critical question that we need to ask ourselves. But I think there is no measure of achievement that can defeat the idea of a changed mind, a recruited mind that has been changed. In other words, if we build our team, because we only started with 10 people in Rongo University when this project was starting, and then we moved to 20 students, and now we are at 60 students. And I think that would be a fantastic way of establishing the level of interest that people might have on digital peace building, and these are not just names. These are individuals that we know. These are individuals that are coming from grassroots local universities, and they play 1 or 2 peace building roles in their own universities. So we, at that level, we are sure that something is happening online as well as offline. And therefore, which brought me to this idea of digital evangelism, without being so spiritual about it, but I would want to imagine that if we recruit people, if we have so many people or followers, let me just say followers, if you have people following our page, for instance, Facebook group, or even WhatsApp group, but Facebook group for that matter, if you have a lot of followers, people who just like what we do, then it means that these people have some level of interest in what we are doing, and we might be influencing them in one way or another, both online and offline, in how they want to conduct themselves, especially around those 2 issues that we talked about, politics in Kenya and COVID-19. So for instance, if we could be able to change the discourse, the discussion around issues of politics and elections, like we are trying to do now, if you want to argue and get people to believe that you don't have to elect people because these people come from your tribe and these people are actually from your ethnic group, but you elect them because of their competence, because of their manifesto, and because of their character, and what they want to do for Kenyans, irrespective of tribe, then we are moving the conversation to another level. So I think on that level, we are able to really measure whether we are moving in the right direction or not.
So,
and I don't know whether I've answered the other question.
That's perfect, Fredrick, because I want to get on to some of the user questions, our audience questions, user questions. You can tell I've been working on a new website design this week. So we have a couple of questions. One comes from Dr. Anna Obura, another from Will Frogiaro, and apologies if I butchered your names. But they've asked about the key issues that you're addressing both online and offline with digital peace builders. Now, I know that you mentioned politics in Kenya, but I was wondering if you could dig down into the issues a little bit more. Like, what issues specifically within politics in Kenya are digital peace builders sort of trying to address, or what issues are sort of causing increased polarization between Kenyans?
Oh, good, great. That's a great question. Thank you for that question. You know, in Kenya, we do have a political system of a winner takes it all. Winner takes it all political system. When Kenya came into multi-party democracy in the 90s, has been responsible for the level of problem that we are seeing today. We can clearly see what we can call false, failed. We are in a cycle of failed promises. The promise of change that has failed to materialize. And this promise of change is usually championed by tribal leaders who often promise their people, quote, quote, that once they get into leadership, then things will change where they are. And they keep on recycling each other. So we see a problem emanating from the nature of political competition in our democracy. And this informs really the kind of political dispensation and order or system that is subject of discussion today through what we call the Building Bridges initiative. People are debating whether Kenya should go parliamentary or hybrid system and get rid of an imperial president, the winner takes it all system, whereby if you don't get the presidency, then you get nothing at all. So that has been responsible for problems. So the idea that you only belong when somebody that represents you, who is apparently from your ethnic community, is in position of power, is when you qualify as a Kenyan, is something that has brought about conflict. So when people compete for the presidency, which is the most powerful office, then there is bound to be conflict. Why? Because Kenya's politics is also defined through ethnicity, so that you want to believe that it's only those people that you share a language with, in a tribal language with, that are the only people who are in a position to help you get a share of the national cake. And that has brought about a problem. And this explains the nature and the scale and scope of problem that you are facing today. Today, we still have that idea that we are going for an election in 2022. We have a president who has finished his 2 terms in office, and we have others who are hoping to succeed him from that ethnic lens, and therefore we have a problem. We've been having these problems. The worst was in 2007 when we had ethnic clashes where the winner was actually thought to have stolen those elections, and the losers refused to concede defeat, and it was a big problem until really we had to invite Kofi Annan to come and bring the former UN Secretary General to come and reconcile the Kenyans, apparently 2 tribal leaders from different 2 big tribes in Kenya. So we know that history, and we going forward, we are currently engaged in a national conversation where we don't want to go back to a limited competition with limited seats so that people can compete for one seat, and when the winner takes that seat, it takes everything, and therefore others have nothing. So now we have a conversation through Building Bridges initiative that is thinking of expanding the executive, so that when others are competing for prime minister, others are competing for presidency. When others are competing for deputy prime minister, others are competing for deputy presidency. And therefore, that lineup is supposed to bring down the tensions, because let us be truthful to each other. The ethnic politics is not going anywhere in Kenya, but we want to use ethnicity positively. So if we have this executive expanded in such a way that different Kenyans can be accommodated in this executive, then I think we can bring down the magnitude of differences, the degree of polarization, and the amount of conflict that we see and witness every electoral cycle.
Thank you, Fredrick. Our next question, I'm going to make time for a couple more, comes from Caleb Gachuchi, or Gachui, and apologies, Caleb, I'm just having a tough day with the names, from the Peace Tech Lab. And Caleb writes, do you address or engage with political leaders who are on social media and are known to write polarizing online content?
Yeah, that's a very wonderful question, Caleb Gishoe, and I hope you're good. Yeah, I think with Maskani, we have actually not thought about engaging with the polarizing figure himself, because politicians in Kenya are very slippery. It's not very easy to get them, but I think that's a good thought. It's something that we can explore. But I think we on the digital online peace building level, we are thinking about engaging with the subject or the issue, the political issue that comes from a political figure, and we want to think about one of the strategies that we've invented on how we want to think about those issues is that we see how we can de-escalate polarization coming in online from politicians in a way that we help de-escalate that level of polarization by posting information from trusted networks. In other words, we know that when we go to polarize, to depolarize issues that are emanating from politicians, we know that we can't succeed, because these followers are already taking sides, and mostly these sides that they're taking are being informed from their ethnicities. So we are highly likely not to succeed when we want to go and de-escalate that nature of conversation without finding a skillful way of engaging in that kind of conversation. So we would want to imagine that if we post from trusted networks, for example, then we are able to get people to listen to what we are trying to say. We are also aware that if we go to that kind of a conversation and we for example humanize the topic of discussion, if it's about violence, we bring it a human face. We say that this violence is affecting Kenyans of different shapes and colors, and you don't have to be from this or that tribe to be affected by what is happening here. So you humanize it, and you also present some positive aspect of that kind of information. You give it some positivity, positive messaging. So online, That is what we can do. Offline, I'm not sure whether it's going to make more sense to also engage politicians offline so that they can learn a lesson or two on of course, what they ought to say when they are in these online spaces, which is really a difficult role to play. I think politicians, and that's why they're called politicians, usually use politics so that they can divide and rule. So politicians would just be on top of their game when they are posting polarizing issues. And I'm not sure about whether any amount of sensitization targeting politicians will make them refrain from posting polarizing discourses online, because they thrive on division.
That's a really interesting. I'm not sure I fully agree with that, though, Fredrick. I'm sure there are plenty of examples of politicians that have used their platform for good and use platforms to sort of reconcile different issues. But I think that's for another time, given our time constraints. And I'd love to sort of hear from the audience. Please feel free to email the DME for Peace team afterwards to sort of share any examples you may have of, you know, politicians using sort of online platforms for good. One example I have, I'm based in London, and I look at Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London's Twitter, and it's an incredibly positive and sort of it's an incredibly positive and community-oriented platform for a discussion forum. So I really appreciate that. Two last questions, Fredrick, before we wrap up. The first is from Sylvester Usingimana, and Sylvester asks, do you coordinate with sort of on the ground existing peace programs in Kenya? And secondly, the last question comes from Andy Fallon of International Alert. And Andy writes, with online activity often being anonymous and geographically dispersed, how is it possible to attribute any improvements on the ground to the digital peacebuilding project? Like, how do you track the causation or the correlation?
All right, let me start with the second question. I think you will repeat the first question, but I'll start with the second question. You know, we are not going to, peace building is a lifestyle. Peace building is not an event. Peace building is not, there's no day that you'll wake up and say, wow, bingo, we have built peace. That's it, let's go and have a beer. Toast to it. No. Peace building is a lifestyle, just like defining peace is also difficult. Some of us would say that peace is when you rest in peace. So the difficulty in defining what peace is also the difficulty that we meet when we want to say that we can really identify a divine level of peace building where we have achieved peace. So in other words, I would say that our perspective, our digital peace building perspective, has the opinion that we want to make digital gadgets like phones and social media and WhatsApp and Facebook, because they've become part and parcel of who we are. Digital virtual reality, as the line between virtual reality and sensory reality has been blurred, such that they are informing each other, and one is informing the other and vice versa. So we want to assume that we don't want people to think that virtual reality can replace sensory reality. That's one. But number two, we don't want to burden people with the current burden that they already have, not to mention pandemics like COVID-19. We want them to embrace digital peace building as a lifestyle in such a way that if we have a group of students in Kakamega, for example, and a group of students in Migori, and we are sure that these are flesh and blood students who agree to the philosophy of peace building because they believe in the aspect of inner peace, and they can influence significant others, then we are happy, because these are people who are often used all the time by politicians, now that you mentioned politicians, as youth for hire, thugs for hire. they cause mayhem here and there. And sometimes they incite themselves using technology. So if they are literally digitally literate, and they have those skills, and they can shun away from using and exploiting technology negatively for positivity, then I think we are really moving towards the right direction. We cannot begin counting and aggregating. It's not about numbers. Peace building is not about numbers, but I think it's about mindset, and it's about a lifestyle. So if we can get people to follow us, people to think like us, people to use technology daily and interact with it in a way that will not polarize, create divisions, tensions, ethnicity, misinformation, disinformation. It doesn't matter where they are. It means that collectively we are headed towards a better Kenya going forward.
I think you make a really important point there, Fredrick, about, you know,
you might want to repeat from me the other question.
I'll get to that now, but I think you make a really important point that you know, peace building is about cultural shifts, and I think one of the challenges that it comes with peace building is understanding the effectiveness and impact of our work, and I think what you're trying to do is incredibly difficult to measure. But that being said, I am sure that 90% of the evaluators on our call would pitch the idea of proxy indicators to help you understand the impact of your work, to monitor progress and allow you to make, you know, effective decisions moving forward. So again, I think it's a discussion for another time, and we're way over time, Fredrick. So I just want to ask you this last question really quickly. How do you collaborate with, you know, peace building organizations in Kenya, or do you collaborate with peace building organizations in Kenya? And is there the potential for partnership with existing organizations?
I didn't get the last part. I got the part of how do I collaborate with peace building organizations in Kenya, and then the last part was
that is the last part. That's the last question.
How do we collaborate with peace building organizations in Kenya? Or do we collaborate with them? Actually, yeah, we do. We actually collaborate with a number of peace building organizations in Kenya. We collaborate with sorry.
No, I think that's the delay. Fredrick, go ahead. And
we collaborate with, for instance, Peace Tech Lab in Nairobi. We collaborate with a number of organizations. We collaborate with the Peace Tech Lab, International Alert. We collaborate with the National Counterterrorism Center, the National Crime Research Center. We collaborate with Champions of Peace. We collaborate with PeaceNet and so many local and national organizations. And I think our work has been amazing. What we are beginning to understand in terms of peace building is that is the shift which is currently happening. Peace building is going digital, and therefore really all the interventions that have been happening, most of them offline, some of them using traditional forms of communication like radio, community radio, TV, and even the arts, theater, music, drama. These things are all converging in a matrix. I usually like calling this matrix it's sort of like a spacecraft, an avatar. And this avatar is a spirit. It's a spirit that is telling us that, look, it seems as if so many things will be happening online. And online space is the new frontier. So we need to prepare ourselves, just like NASA is preparing to take man to Mars. We need to prepare to take Kenyans to the digital online space so that Kenyans can have the correct weapons to fight ethnicity, the correct weapons to fight coronavirus, so that Kenyans can emerge a peaceful and a prosperous community and country going forward.
Fredrick,
So yeah, we work with a lot of local peace builders, and we want to share experiences with them. We want to really share knowledge and skills and so on and so forth. So we invite others who do not know about us to join us. We are found at the Center for Media Democracy, Peace and Security in Rongo University.
Great, thank you, Fredrick. And we are at time today. I think that's a sort of nice point that if anybody on the line is based in Kenya and would like to connect with Fredrick and his team, please do. The links are in the email announcements that we sent out earlier today. One of the more interesting news stories that I read over the last couple of days was around, Kenyan innovation and Google setting up internet balloons, hot air balloons with Wi-Fi hotspots on them to provide sort of 4G access to the Kenyan people. So I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see more sort of innovation and hopefully locally led innovation. Thank you to our audience. Thank you for your patience. I understand today's webinar was a challenge with the Wi-Fi and the delay that we had between the questions and answers. But as always, we appreciate your support. And we will be posting the recording of today's webinar on our media gallery later today. So please return to it, share it with your colleagues, and we'll be back next week, the week after, with some really interesting webinars. I can't wait to host these discussions. This is the best part of my job, and I look forward to seeing you online. Look after yourself, look out for each other, take care, and stay healthy. And a final thank you to Fredrick for persevering through all the tech challenges that he had today.